Mr. President, there are few things more important to Americans than our money. It represents our life's work, our savings, our investment. And when our founders put this country together and put the Constitution together, they gave the Congress the responsibility to protect our currency and the value of our money. This is a responsibility that decades ago the Congress delegated to the Federal Reserve to operate as an independent institution responsible for protecting our monetary system as well as overseeing employment in our country. Congress has not paid much attention to what the Federal Reserve has done. In fact, we have little idea now what they're doing. We do know that they're doing many things now that they didn't do even a few years before. Trillions of dollars buying toxic assets from various financial institutions. We know that they're doing business all over the world, lending money with international banks, but we don't know exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it, or how they're doing it. We don't know if a lot of these activities could eventually bring down our financial system. We need to be concerned because it is our responsibility as a Congress. And if we allow our currency to be undermined anywhere in the world, it's detrimental to every American family, everything we work for, everything we've saved. We can't pass this off. This Congress has established other financial institutions such as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to supposedly facilitate the mortgage industry and make it easier for people to buy homes. We were told there was no problem with subprime lending and all the things Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were involved with. But as a Congress, we didn't do our job overseeing, asking enough questions. And then when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac created this huge housing bubble and brought our economy to its knees, millions of Americans lost much of what they'd worked for and saved. But what happened with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac is small compared to what could happen if the Federal Reserve did something to undermine the confidence in the dollar worldwide. Congress should not be managing our monetary system. I don't think we could do it in the current political structure. But it is our job to provide accountability and transparency to what's going on at the Federal Reserve. Last week I spoke in support of the Sanders Amendment, and I still plan to support it today. But that amendment has been changed, and it narrows the scope of a complete audit. It really can't be called a complete audit anymore. It's more of just disclosure in various aspects of what the Federal Reserve does. It doesn't include now what they would refer to as monetary policy. My understanding was that's pretty much what they did at the Federal Reserve, so cutting that out takes out a big part of what we need to know about what they're doing. It would block us from finding out what the Federal Reserve is doing with banks all around the world. It would block us from finding out a lot of things that could give us indication whether or not the Federal Reserve is putting our monetary and financial systems at risk. I think it is important, at least at one point in time, for us to find out what the Federal Reserve is doing, disclose it in a way to the American people that they will have confidence that what's happening with the Federal Reserve and with our currency is going to create a stable currency out into the future. Senator Vitter has offered the original amendment before it was changed, the same amendment that was passed in the House by an overwhelming majority, which will include all aspects of the Federal Reserve, not in real time, but there'll be a delay so that we can't meddle in what they're doing. But it opens up a full audit of the Federal Reserve so that this Congress can make good decisions about any needed reforms and certainly keeping some accountability over the Federal Reserve. It makes absolutely no sense to create really the most powerful agency in the world over the reserve currency for the world and for there to be no accountability over what they're doing. We know they think we're not smart enough to understand what they're doing, and we may not be. But based on things they've told us in the past, they're not necessarily as smart as they think they are either. Because only a few months before Fannie Mae collapsed, the Federal Reserve told us there was no problem. Now they're telling us there's no problem now and that we don't need to look at what they're doing. I think it's important that we have full disclosure and accountability and transparency at the Federal Reserve. It's important that the American people trust the people that are managing their currency, and right now they don't. A full audit would help restore that trust and help Congress do its job to oversee the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve can maintain its independence, but it doesn't have to be independent in secret. Because if they're operating secretly, Congress is not doing its job. I encourage my colleagues to support the Sanders Amendment, but also the Vitter Amendment, so that we will have a full audit and that know for the first time what our Federal Reserve is doing with our money.